Good afternoon, Christopher. Thanks very much for taking part in the Business Spotlight series. I'm going to hand it straight over to you to introduce yourself and what you do.
Thanks very much. Thanks for inviting me. So my name's Christopher Salmon. I run a company called Clear Border, and Clear Border helps businesses move goods across international borders. So everything to do with customs processes and all the various processes that happen at the border. And we've been doing this for the last couple of years and work with clients across all sectors, really, all sectors and really all sizes.
Fantastic. And you mentioned obviously doing it for the last couple of years. Was this something that came about after Brexit?
It did come about after Brexit. We obviously we have, there's a reasonable amount of what we do that is a result of Brexit. So businesses adjusting to the new processes with Europe, but we're not exclusive to Europe, and we're not exclusive to sort of Brexit, if you like. So we do work for companies that are shipping goods to and from America, for example, or Canada. Israel, all sorts of other parts of the world that are not the European Union. But of course, there are a lot of businesses that have previously traded with Europe, perhaps stopped when Brexit happened, and I'm trying to re-engage with the process now that it's sort of settling in, who we can help. So we're all about the border. We're not specific about the sector or the geography, if you like.
Interesting. And in terms of the types of businesses, are there certain sectors or certain sizes of businesses that you work with more?
We work with a whole variety. So there's sort of three parts to what we do. The first part is a training package. So it's an online modular self-serve training package designed for ordinary businesses to understand and the processes involved in moving goods internationally. And our intention there really was to spread knowledge about those processes far and wide through whole supply chains and businesses. So they are available through a website. You can go and put your credit card details in them and buy one. Or equally, if you had a team of 100 people, you could upload 100 emails and you get 100 logins for an interactive modular training package, which takes you through the process of exporting, tests you on the way, introduces you to the kind of key concepts, and really equips you to deal with all those things that you'll experience if you're shipping goods internationally. The agency that will be involved if you're using them, the border processes, the government departments that might have an interest in what you're doing, and what you need to provide them with, and crucially, of course, what happens on the other side of your customer or supplier, depending which way you're going. And all the contractual implications of delivery and risk and insurance that comes with them, Incoterms and all those sorts of aspects of international trade.
Great. And in terms of, you mentioned that's the online training side. Is that one of the main things that you do, or what's the main focus of it?
So that's one part of what we do. So we provide that online training. You can access it through the website, or you can get in touch and we can enroll you on or your team members on courses, and they cover all aspects of trade processes. So that's one of the main components. A couple of others. The second is consulting, essentially, so advice to businesses. And that generally takes two forms in our experience. So companies would either get in touch with us where they've hit trouble with a process, and they want some help, basically. And we act for a number of companies, for example, a space manufacturing business, some food businesses as well, where we are, to all intents and purposes, their import and export department, but on a sort of contracted basis, and handle all aspects of that. So that we either work on a sort of reactive basis, where a company would buy a bundle of hours, if you like, and we would use those hours to support them, or on a more kind of project basis, where they might be want a compliance review, they might have fallen foul of an HMRC audit, or be preparing for one, or have done it themselves for the couple of years, perhaps since Brexit, not quite sure whether they've done it right, want to check, and so on. So we do more kind of project-based work of that sort. And that's probably the biggest component of all we do, but we do work across all the three elements. And the final element, the third element, is we conduct research and provide kind of thought leadership into how the border is developing, particularly in relation to businesses' experience of the border, rather than the actual point on the map, because a lot of businesses would experience the border as way back in their purchasing decisions and their supply chain, and all the way past the border, into the country where they need to sort of retain records and so on. So the business implications actually are much greater away from the border than they are at the point where the goods cross. Although, of course, there are some things that happen there as well.
Yeah, interesting. And this is perhaps a sort of crystal ball question, given the nature of what you do. But what are the aspirations for the company in the next 5 years?
Well, we're relatively young. We're a couple of years old, so we're still establishing ourselves. But we've had a very good run so far. I think we would like to get a little bit bigger. We're very keen, though, really to be able to support businesses in a kind of personal and tailored way. And I think I think a business like this could go one of two ways. It could run very sort of transactional and sort of mass market. I think we would like to be more helpful. I mean, our stated ambition really is to make trade borders invisible. So we know they exist. They're there for a reason, and a good reason in many cases, to control, protect the market and control a country's internal market. But the processes around them are less than ideal, and they're quite outdated. They need to be much more digitized. So as a company, we really see ourselves as trying to make those borders invisible to the business, because we've prepared them and helped them understand the processes, and they become automatic and internal to a business, and therefore much less costly and intrusive. And also supporting and working with the sort of technology solutions that are increasingly coming to the market to essentially digitize these processes, much in the way that perhaps we now do our VAT return through Making Tax Digital. 20 years ago, we did it with an accountant. That's the customs process is somewhere nearer the 20 years ago scenario than the Making Tax Digital scenario.
Yeah, great. And then on the other side of that, what would you say the challenges are for the sector?
For this, well, the challenge have been and continue to be the degree of change. So particularly in the UK context, obviously the market has changed significantly, and the rules about importing and exporting have changed significantly. Most obviously Brexit if you're trading with Europe, but now even if you're trading with the rest of the world, the UK is introducing its own, as we speak, if you like, the first truly sort of independent policy in terms of particularly food and animal product trade. So that process of change continues, and I think it is settling down compared to what it was perhaps over the last 5 years, but that nevertheless is a challenge for the industry. But so that's the particularly the UK context. I think if we look more widely, I mean, clearly the pandemic had a huge impact on supply chains. The war in Ukraine has had a huge impact on supply chains and the international market, if you like. And that element of geopolitical tension remains. If it's the whole question about what happens in China, I think is rising every month, really. I mean, that there is businesses are constantly reevaluating those supply chains, and I think the model that we're perhaps used to through the 90s and early 2000s is no longer really viable. We're moving away from an assumption that everything can be delivered just in time to a more emphasis being placed on resilience and effective management and balancing of risks in supply chains.
Yeah, interesting. Thank you. And then, that's it brings me to a nice next question, which would be, obviously you've done a bit of reflection there. I think the nature of what you do involves weighing lots of different things up. What's been your biggest learning as a business owner over the last couple of years?
Nothing goes to plan, but you need a plan. So I think I mean, both are true, really. I mean, I think the value of a plan is less in the plan than in the planning. And one of the experiences I had setting this up, I came out of government. I'd worked on the process of preparing the UK for departure from the EU within government, and was very aware of the challenges businesses were experiencing. Hence the interest in setting up Clear Border. And I went through a whole process of, I spent a lot of time with friends and supporters and people who were willing to help get it off the ground, because it's not easy, as lots of people will know who've done it, starting a business. That process is is really valuable, but it's hard work, and the real value is actually less in what you decide on doing, but more the thinking you do to get you there. Because as soon as you set out on your plan, I think we probably lasted about 3 months before we suddenly realized we were doing something slightly different. But then that's part of the interest, and it doesn't mean that the original plan wasn't useful. It just means that you've adapted to the market. So I think I think that's been the challenge and the experience, but that's part of what's interesting about it, and it's very satisfying when you can fix a problem for somebody, when you can provide a service and someone likes it and they come back to you for more, and that is very rewarding on a commercial level, but actually on a sort of personal level as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And look, as a final thing, is there any news or any offer you'd like to share with the audience?
Certainly that if people have issues or are dealing with the border, we've certainly got help that we can provide. And if they mention the fact they heard about us on this podcast, then I'm sure that we can come to an arrangement to support it. But we were very keen to help small businesses in particular who've been particularly hit by the uncertainty recently. And we're a small business ourselves. And we would be delighted to hear from anyone who feels they need some help, and we will certainly mention that they heard about us on this podcast, and we will do a deal.
That's very kind. Thank you, Christopher. Look, great to find out more about your business, and look forward to seeing how it develops over the coming years.
Thank you very much, Ed.